So I've got a video that's trending. It's about a year and a half old now. Maybe not quite a year and a half old, but it's getting up there close to a year and a half old. And I was talking about a rule that the ATF wanted to impose on people and said that you weren't supposed to be able to make a profit if you sold a firearm. And at the time, well, I still got it. It's a little 22 Dad gave me. And I was talking about I could never sell it because it was free. I would have to give it away. And it's, well, I don't know how many views it got. It's got a lot. It's trended nearly the entire time it's been out. It goes up and down in how many views per hour it gets, but it's always getting views. Well, since then, the Supreme Court has come out and given an opinion on Chevron difference. Chevron difference is what gives these agencies like the ATF and not the FBI, the EPA, authority to make rules on laws that have been made. What this is supposed to do, the Chevron difference back in the 80s, was supposed to keep the Congress from having to make so many laws. That, you know, if we want to make the 22 illegal and call it an explosive, then we'd have to make a law. Well, no, we'll just give it to the ATF to decide, to make a rule. Well, and then we start getting into semantics. And I mean, there's been a lot of opinions in the comment section, obviously, because it's a trending video. First of all, I said the ATF made a law. ATF can't make laws. Well, to me, it's semantics. That's all it is. I don't care if it's a law, a rule, or chicken dung. If I have to go to jail for it, it's all the same. What difference does it make? And then people keep spouting off the Constitution. Well, that's against the Second Amendment. They can't do that. Well, they are doing it, and they did do it. As a matter of fact, there was a guy in Arkansas, Little Rock, Arkansas, and he, I guess, would manage the airport in Little Rock. He was some sort of big executive at the airport, let's put it that way. Well, he had a hobby of trading guns, buying, selling, and I guess he did quite a bit of it. Well, the ATF, with this new rule that they put in place, that hadn't even went up for public opinion yet, decided they didn't want him doing this anymore. They just decided. So it wasn't even really officially a rule because that's called for public opinion. And I mean, it doesn't matter if the public makes an opinion or not. They're going to do whatever they want to do. But they went ahead and pursued this guy. Now, on a Saturday, the ATF met in a Walmart parking lot at 4 o'clock in the morning, and they realized, hey, the guy's not home. So we're not going to go and serve this warrant. Now, it was a no-knock warrant, and what they wanted to find was guns. They didn't need the guy, they needed the guns that he had. So I think the best time to go is to go when the guy's not home. Go in there, take the guns you want, and leave. Heck, you could even leave a little note saying, hey, you know, this was a warrant. Yeah, you lost all your guns, buddy. You know, something like that. But no, they decided they wanted him home. So what did they do? They convened, I guess, the next Saturday at the Walmart parking lot, realized, okay, he's home. So they went in there, no-knock warrant, busted down the door. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. Well, the guy wakes up out of bed. Huh, what's this on a Saturday morning at 6 o'clock in the morning? He grabs a firearm, tells his wife to stay in the bedroom, which she didn't. She followed him out. He saw an intruder, and he shot the intruder in the foot. Of course, they returned fire, and now he's dead. So I don't care if it's against the Constitution or not. It doesn't really matter if you're dead. So Congress held, hearings about this atrocious act that the ATF did. I mean, they're going to make a difference. They're going to really do some damage here. They're going to take care of business. That's all you heard. It was all these congressmen getting on the news talking about how this is just out of hand. This got to stop. So they held the congressional meetings. The wife of the man that was dead showed up. She gave her testimony, and they all cried, and it was all very sad. And they said, well, I guess the shooting was justified. He did shoot first on a warrant. Well, wait a minute. Can't we punish him for going in while he's home? Why didn't they go in last Saturday when he wasn't home, or pull him over? You know, a lot of people talk about the Waco instance, and you know, everybody's got all these trumped up charges on him. Every time I bring it up, oh, wasn't he? And I'm not going to mention his name because I'm not sure how YouTube will respond to it. Wasn't he abusing young girls? Maybe. I don't know. We'll never know. But that wasn't the charge that they were after him with. They were after him for illegal guns. So here's an idea. Let's go and camp out in front of his compound with however many people were in the building until he does something crazy, or until we decide we want to, you know, burn it down, or whatever happened. You know, I hear both sides of the story. I have my opinion, but I'm trying to be a little bit unbiased here. Or, I don't know, this one just seemed like a good idea. You know, he went to the grocery store a lot by himself. It would have been interesting if they'd have just kind of surrounded him in the car, pulled him over, and said, hey, you're under arrest. No. It was much more dramatic. And what happened to the ATF at that point? I mean, obviously they all went to prison because they burned up a bunch of people and did all kinds of things. No, not a thing. Nothing happened. So, we have the Constitution. They can't do that. Well, they can do it if you're dead. What does the Constitution mean if you're dead? It doesn't mean anything. No one is... The Constitution is an antique piece of paper now. No one has followed it for generations. The last time it was followed was right before the Civil War. Before the Civil War, men would go into the tavern and they would talk about the Constitution. It was a big subject back then. But after the Civil War, many of the men who were talking about it died in the Civil War, obviously. And they weren't talking about it anymore. They weren't teaching their sons about it. A lot of the richer sons, the wives, sent their sons to Europe, to fancy colleges. So we learned about Marxism and that kind of stuff over there. And then they came back home and implemented these ideas. So by the time the 20s and the 30s, 1920s and 30s rolled around, the Constitution was pretty much already obsolete. We'd already changed it from the Senate being elected by the representatives of each state. So like Jefferson City is our capital here in the state of Missouri. So the representatives in the state capital would vote for the Senate. Well, they gave up on that because they weren't getting the people into the Senate that they wanted. So they changed the Constitution so senators were elected by the people. Well, that's obviously more democratic, isn't it? Except now senators can get campaign financing from California. Missouri senator can get California campaign financing to convince the people to vote for them. Whereas in the Senate, in the past, Congress wasn't manipulated by campaign financing and all that and commercials. They heard the case of each candidate and they voted based on what they believed. And then the congressmen in Jeff City were elected by the people. They couldn't get campaign financing from California. So the people vote for the people in Jeff City who vote for the Senate. So that immediately after the Civil War, all this changed. And then of course we got the income tax. And I don't know. I just don't, I mean, I understand the Constitution says you can tax, but I don't think it was meant that way. So, people interpret the Constitution all kinds of different ways. I mean, we hear all the time, I have a freedom of speech that I can say anything I want in your comment section. You can't block me. Well, no, you didn't read the Constitution. How do you have a constitutional right to say anything you want in my comment section? It says, Congress shall make no law. Hey, buddy, I'm not part of Congress, and I'm not making laws. I've decided I don't like your comment, and I'm deleting it. Goodbye, it's my community. It's my page. If you want to make your own page to say whatever you want to say, go for it. But I can't get that many subscribers that fast, you know. Well, that's your problem. We have a freedom, and it's a basic fundamental freedom given by us, by our Creator. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, I know that's in Declaration of Independence. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So our Creator gave us life, said, hey, we could have life. Liberty, we could be free to do free will. We're allowed free will. And to pursue happiness. Well, a lot of people interpret pursue happiness as we got to have money. I don't have any money, but man, am I happy. So when we talk about your Creator gave you rights, when we look at the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments of the Constitution, those are the Bill of Rights. Those were endowed by your Creator. Yet somehow government can regulate these. Even though they're not supposed to, they weren't supposed to, they can regulate them. And everybody agrees. Well, you can't say fire in a theater. Yeah, I can, because I can literally say those words, fire, while I'm in a theater. Because my Creator gave me the ability to say it. So I can say it. Now I have a responsibility not to say it. And if I caused a public nuisance, or I harmed people in that statement, or I get sued by the theater for shutting down their film, or something got tore up, I need to take responsibility for that. And there are laws in place for me to take responsibility for that, but that's not what we do. We decided, no, we're going to put a limit on a right, something that God gave us. Nope, can't say fire in the theater. I just don't agree with that. I can say fire in the theater all I want. I just got to take responsibility for that action. So then we move on down to the Second Amendment. And this is the one I want to talk about because I started out with the ATF. We have a right to defend ourselves. Now, the writers of the Constitution talked about militias, and they talked about standing up towards the government and that kind of stuff, and that's all fine. I mean, that's a defense. If my government is telling me I can't say fire, then I need to defend myself. God gave me the right to defend myself against not being able to say fire. But the Second Amendment is actually the most restricted amendment that we have until, well, I guess recently. The Fourth Amendment became a lot less guarded, but I don't want to get that far into it. So, if you're a God-fearing person, then you believe that God gave you the right to defend yourself, gave you the ability to defend yourself. And so if someone comes in your house and tries to cause you harm, He has given me the actual ability. He didn't come out and say, hey, you can defend yourself. He didn't have to say that. He gave me the thought process, I have to defend my family from this bad guy. But now we have rules in place for all that. You know, some states require that you have a duty to retreat. Castle doctrine. You got to have a rule for defense. You got to have a rule, disparity of force. Just there's all kinds of rules, and you're constantly studying the rules if you want to defend yourself. Instead, there's a bad guy, and he wants to harm me. So we had to put restrictions on the Second Amendment. Now, the Second Amendment, in my mind, is if I harm someone illegally with a firearm, then I need to be held responsible for that. Just like the fire. If I say fire in the theater and I harm someone, I need to be held responsible for that. You don't need to take my freedom away, which you can't do anyways because God gave it to me. Well, the same thing with a gun or defense. Just because you think I might harm someone that didn't need to be harmed, you can't take away my right to defend myself or make it so complicated that I can't defend myself or in fear of defending myself because I'm going to spend the rest of my life in court and I can't afford lawyers, so I'm just going to take a plea deal. That's not the right to defend yourself. That's, well, we're going to give you some leeway occasionally, but your jury really is going to have to figure this out, and you're going to have to spend millions of dollars to figure it out. Well, God never said I had to be rich to defend myself. He never said that. But my government does. My government is now more powerful than God himself. So yesterday I got a comment explaining to me how, well, first of all, he says, you should know that government can't take away your guns. What they can do, though, is regulate what you can buy or sell. They can regulate that. Back to that video I made. And he said, so since you agree with that, no, I don't agree with that. He said certain people need to have some restrictions based on that criteria. So the mentally ill, the gangbangers, the violent felons, and he listed all of them. Well, first of all, mentally ill, you mean if I got anxiety, I can't have a gun? I can't defend myself? All of a sudden, I can't defend myself because occasionally I get a little scared and I want to, or depression, I get a little scared and I want to hide in my house. Well, I don't agree with that. Gangbangers. Well, gangbangers have guns anyways, so I'm not really sure I understand what difference does it make if they buy it at the store, they buy it or steal it from your house or buy it from another gangbanger. I don't know what the difference is. They still have it. Again, if they have a gun and they use the gun, it's not the gun. They need to be held responsible. The penalties on them need to be held. So let's look at a chainsaw. Chainsaw is pretty dangerous. What if the gangbanger used a chainsaw to cut up a bunch of people? Should we make chainsaws harder to buy? Mentally ill and gangbangers and violent felons can't have chainsaws? What about cars? People are killed with cars all the time. You know, this isn't ever thought through. For some reason, the gun has a special flavor for those who want to make it illegal. And so I reply, God gave me these rights, and I'm not in a position to tell anybody whether they can have the right to have a gun or not. So no, I don't agree with you. He says, well, what do you mean? You don't agree that gangbangers and mentally ill, and he goes through the whole list again, can't have guns? And I said, yes, that's all I said. And he says, well, at least you're not a hypocrite, but you are a psychopath. So now I'm mentally ill. So in a course of a conversation, he has classified me as mentally ill, and now I can't have a gun just because he doesn't agree with my assessment of what I said. I have a right to an opinion. I have a right to believe something without being labeled as mentally ill, so I can't own my Second Amendment. I'm an absolutist. With rights come responsibility. That's all I have to say. And we have laws in place to hold everybody responsible for doing things they shouldn't be doing, regardless of what tools or what speech they use. So I hope that gives you something to think about. So if you'll click this up next box, it'll take you to a video. Well, it's working on something. So I hope I can inspire you to be an absolutist so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.